Hello friends and welcome back to another episode of Spilling Studio. My name is Sam and this week we have 7 ARE practice questions designed to help you pass your next exam. We have 1 question per exam topic and a bonus question at the end, so stick around. Starting us off is practice management. According to AIA document B101, which of the following are part of the architect's basic scope of services during bidding? Distributing the bid documents to bidders, setting and conducting a pre-bid conference, responding to questions from bidders, reviewing substitution requests and sending addenda with approved substitutions to all bidders, opening of the bids and distributing the results. Feel free to pause here to answer. And the answer is distributing the bidding documents to bidders, setting and conducting the pre-bid conference, responding to questions from bidders, and opening the bids and distributing the results. As stated in the question, this answer comes from Contract B101. Section 3 covers the architect's scope of basic services. Remember, B101 is the contract between the owner and the architect, so it covers what the architect is supposed to do and what the owner is supposed to do. Section 3 breaks the architect's scope down into phases of the project. This question is asking about bidding. Section 3.5.2 bullets out exactly what the architect's duties are during this phase, which are distributing the bidding documents, conducting a pre-bid conference, responding to bidder questions, and opening of the bids. The very last part tells us that evaluating substitution requests is an ad service, and it says it so nicely. The architect shall, as an ad service, consider requests for substitution. That means that the owner has to pay up if we're reviewing substitutions. So at my firm, I am 99% sure we do not charge the client for reviewing substitutions, but our contract may vary slightly from the AIA contracts. Let me know in the comment how your firm goes about reviewing substitution requests. Do they charge an ad service or not? Alright, next up is project management. According to AIA document A201, who must supply the contractor with 1 free copy of the contract documents? The architect, owner, permitting department, or AHJ? Pause here to answer. The answer is owner. I think when I was studying for this, I probably would have said the architect, but in your design bid build projects, there is no contract between the architect and the contractor. So the architect delivers the drawings to the owner, and the owner is required to provide the drawings to the contractor. It is at the owner's expense to provide the drawings, not the architect. The permitting department and AHJ, which stands for Authorities Having Jurisdiction, reviews the drawings, and depending on the jurisdiction, makes the review drawings available for the contractor to download. But it is not their responsibility to provide them to the contractor because, again, there's no contractual relationship between them and the contractor. Now on to programming and analysis. Which of the following rooms for a new fire station would be considered a net assignable area? Check all that apply. The lieutenant's office, electrical room, bunk room, or corridor? Pause here to answer. The correct answer is lieutenant office and bunk room. The way I remember net assignable area is that they are spaces you can assign a desired use to. Think of it like if you sat down with someone who is not in architecture and you ask them what spaces they need to include in an elementary school. They say, well, classrooms, a cafeteria, admin offices, a music room, and so on, right? They would not say things like mechanical room, electrical room, stairs, and hallways, and all those types of spaces that we architects don't like adding in our plans ourselves. So the items that they would list are your assignable spaces, and the items that they wouldn't list are your unassignable areas. In this scenario, at a fire station, what spaces would the chief list? They would definitely say a lieutenant's office and bunk beds, but not the corridor or the electrical room. So your net assignable spaces are those you can assign an occupant to or a specific use to. Net unassignable are areas that do not house the primary activities of the building. And when you add those two together, you get the total gross area of the building. Our question for project planning is, in architectural engineering project planning, what role does a feasibility study primarily serve? Assessing the structural integrity of existing buildings, estimating the final project cost accurately, analyzing the environmental impact of construction, evaluating the practicality and viability of a proposed project, or reviewing the legal requirements for construction permits. Pause to answer. The correct answer is evaluating the practicality and viability of a proposed project. Feasibility studies are used to see if doing the project at all makes sense before moving forward with detailed planning and development. These studies consider a variety of aspects such as site analysis, legal and regulatory compliance, market demand, financial needs, technical implications, and other factors to see if the project is achievable and worthwhile. So many of the options listed are part of a feasibility study, but they are not the primary focus. Structural assessments, estimating, environmental impact, and legal requirements are all part of the study, but they are not the primary focus. A brief pause here to remind you that I post new questions every week, so please hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on a video. It also really helps me out, so thank you. Now on to project development. Which of the following project documents primarily outlines the technical details for construction materials, performance requirements, finish type, and quality assurance in architectural projects? Construction drawings, design development drawings, requests for information, construction specifications, or change order request? Pause here to answer. And the correct answer is construction specifications. Construction specifications are detailed documents that outline specific materials, products, finishes, and the installation intent for various components of a construction project. These specifications provide comprehensive information to contractors, suppliers, and builders about the quality standards, performance criteria, and methods to be followed during construction. Specifications, which we often call specs, are broken into three parts: general, products, and execution. The general portion tells you what product that spec is about. Other sections that are related, like a concrete spec is related to the reinforcing spec, as well as various requirements of the material, like testing, quality, warranties, and what conditions it can be installed in, and what submittals are required to be submitted. Part 2, products, tells you everything you'd want to know about the material, what the material is compatible with, what tests the material needs to pass, as well as a general description with a preferred manufacturer or a list of acceptable manufacturers. It also has the qualities of the material, so finish, size, pattern, texture, or chemical properties depending on the type of material. The last section is execution. It's about how to use the material, so how to examine it before it's installed, what prep needs to be done before it's installed, how it's intended to be installed, what cleaning should be done once it's installed, and then finally how to protect the material or product once it's been installed. Because some materials have to be covered until construction is complete to protect it from being damaged while other parts of the building are still in construction. Next up is construction evaluation. The construction of an elementary school is halfway through construction. Which of the following will be conducted to ensure compliance with the approved drawings, specifications, and building codes? Pre-construction meeting, substantial completion review, punch list walkthrough, progress site visit, or code compliance inspection? Pause here to answer. And the correct answer is code compliance inspection. During the construction phase, a code compliance inspection is primarily focused on ensuring that the construction work aligns with the approved drawings, specifications, and relevant building codes and regulations. These inspections are conducted by qualified inspectors or authorities to verify that the construction meets the necessary standards for safety, structural integrity, fire codes, accessibility, and other applicable regulations. The important words in this question that knocks out all the other options are halfway through construction and building codes. So if we go through this option by option, a pre-construction meeting happens before construction, not during, and involves discussing project logistics, roles, responsibilities, and expectations among stakeholders. A substantial completion review happens towards the end of construction when the project is almost finished to ensure that the work has been substantially completed per the contract documents. While it does involve evaluating progress, it does not focus on code compliance. Hopefully, by this point, all code issues have been resolved. A punch list walkthrough occurs near the end of the project to identify any remaining, incomplete, or unsatisfactory items that need to be addressed before final completion. It's more about finalizing minor details rather than code compliance. A site visit occurs periodically during construction to monitor progress, address concerns, and ensure work is proceeding according to plans. While they do involve checking progress, they do not typically focus on code compliance as their primary goal. So based on all of the options provided, a code compliance inspection during construction primarily focuses on compliance with approved drawings, specs, and building codes. Last but not least, our bonus question is, in project management, what does the term scope creep refer to? Unexpected delays in project schedule? Uncontrolled increase in project costs? Expansion of project objectives without proper approval? Communication breakdown among stakeholders? Inadequate allocation of project resources? Pause to answer. And the answer is expansion of project objectives without proper approval. So we're not talking about a creepy person here, but scope creep is something to be wary of, and it can sneak up on you if you're not paying attention. Scope creep refers to the uncontrolled expansion or addition to project's original scope. Scope creep refers to the uncontrolled expansion or additions to the project's original objectives, deliverables, or requirements without appropriate approval or formalized change. This expansion can happen gradually. It can creep up on you, leading to an increase in project scope beyond what was initially defined and agreed upon. Scope creep can happen in many forms, such as unplanned changes. As an example, if you're working on a government building and then your client realizes they needed 2 additional conference rooms that weren't in the original program, that would be out of the project scope, even though it's a small change. Another way scope creep can happen is with unforeseen conditions. I'm currently working on a project where we were given a survey by the owner before design, which we used to create our site plan, building placement, and so on. Well, once construction started and the contractor was applying for permits, we discovered an easement that was not shown on the original survey. This required us to move the building 2 feet, which doesn't sound like a big change, but it had major impacts to our building systems design. Since the owner did not provide an accurate survey, we had to request an additional service to make those changes. Another type of scope creep would be changing requirements. This year, there's a new building code being released in a month, and we've been warning our clients to push whatever projects they have in design to get them through permitting before the code changes. Because once a new code is in effect, all drawings and specifications will need to be updated to the new code. This could be a scope change that would require an additional service fee to complete these changes. So how is this scope creep? Well, if the design started with a schedule that had final drawings completed before the code change, then the architect would have designed that building to the current code and not the new code because they knew that the project was going to be done beforehand. Things can happen during design that push the completion date out, like owner changes, lack of funding, and other situations that are out of the architect's control. In this scenario, this would be a scope change since, at no fault of the architect, the documents would have to be updated to the new code. Scope creep can cause delays in the project schedule, create additional work for the architect, increase the cost to the firm, and it can negatively impact the project's success. Ways to mitigate this is primarily through communication. You need to clearly tell your client what is included in their scope and what isn't. When a client wants to make a change, you need to clearly communicate what those implications to the project are so they can make a fully informed decision. And finally, it's important to have a formal process for evaluating and approving any scope changes so it's clear what is and isn't accepted. That's our questions for this week. Remember to check out the description for links to some of the AIA contracts covered in this video. I've also linked some of my favorite study books, so go check those out. Let me know in the comments what subject areas you're struggling with, and I'll do my best to cover it in the next video. Thank you all for joining. Please subscribe, and good luck on your next exam. You got this.